Hi there! Welcome to Pallet University. Today we are once again taking a look at how Pokemon might be as pets, specifically, arguably the most popular Pokemon, Charizard. Thank you to Nullsmike for the suggestion in the comments of the last video in this series, so if you have a particular Pokemon that you want to see covered, make sure to let me know down in the comments. Also, while you're down there, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Charizard is probably the most iconic Pokemon besides Pikachu, and it's for a good reason. It's mostly because of its really, powerful and prominent presence in the anime for a long stretch of it. Other than Pikachu, Charizard has been with Ash for the, most, screen time, I guess, of any of his Pokemon. And because of its popularity, many people have sort of wondered what it might be like as a pet. As I mentioned in the last video, please make sure to go check out Clint's Reptiles, which is the channel that this entire scoring system and idea is sort of based on. The link will be down in the description. It would really mean a lot if you go check out his channel. So with that, we are here to answer one simple question. Is the Charizard line the best pet Pokemon for you? And the answer is no. Not even a little bit. Not even as something that no. Just no. I tried to come up with an analogy for what it might be like, but there's really nothing. There is no animal, in the real world, that would be harder to keep than a Charizard. The Charizard line gets a score of 1.4 out of 5, and this comes down to our 5 categories, which are handleability, care, hardiness, availability, and upfront costs. For handleability, the Charizard line gets a score of 0 out of 5. Like before, we're going to be considering the entire evolutionary line, but unlike the Totodile line from last episode, where only the final form of that line could conceivably kill you, all 3 members of this line could kill you without even trying. As a Charmander, you might be able to sort of handle it and move it around if you can handle the heat of the flame on its tail, which you probably can't because it's literal fire. And there are some fire-type Pokemon that have lore where it's like if the Pokemon trusts you, then you will not be burned by its flame. The biggest example is Ponyta. However, nothing I have ever seen says that about anything in the Charizard line. In fact, they frequently burn Ash, at least at the beginning. Without some kind of flame retardant clothing, you would not even be able to be near your pet Charmander. And Charmander is the nicest of the 3. Now granted, Ash only had his Charmeleon for 2 or 3 episodes, but the entire time that he had it, it was a little jerk. And by little, I mean 3 feet tall? I don't actually know how tall Charmeleon is, but for a reptile, easily above your waist, I would think, so really not all that little. Charmeleon, actively disobeyed Ash to the point where it would breathe its fire at him, which, in the show, whatever, it's a cartoon, but granted, these are all video game monsters, but bear with me. So, if it breathed its fire at you, you would die. Full stop, you would die. Charmeleon did not obey him at all, and like I said, he was only a Charmeleon for 2 or 3 episodes until it evolved into a Charizard, which also did not obey Ash. And, while Charizard did eventually come to trust Ash and become, a valuable member of his team, that wasn't until after it had tried to set Ash on fire every time that he sent it out. I sort of compare this to handling a king cobra, where, yeah, you probably could, if you knew what you were doing, you probably could handle a king cobra, but it's just not worth the risk. And king cobras can actually be relatively docile if you were to work with them a significant amount, actively multiple times a day for a multiple minute interactions per day to get that animal to trust you. You could do it, but the act of doing it is just so very likely to get you killed that it is not worth it. Next we have care, for which the Charizard line also gets a 0 out of 5. How would you even house this thing? With the previous episode with the Feraligatr and Totodile line, that was pretty straightforward because it's basically just a big crocodilian. So you can basically just take a crocodilian pet setup that we have, not a ton of, but people do it, and just sort of make it bigger. And like I said, reinforce the walls a lot because it's a Pokemon. but there is nothing even close to a Charizard in the real world. Not even close. First of all, you would need to make sure that its enclosure, which realistically would be multiple rooms in your house, because you would just need that much space. You need to make sure that that entire enclosure is flame retardant. And honestly, I don't even know how to go about doing that. Like, I don't even know if that's a thing that you can do. So presumably, because they're fire types, they are endothermic and, are warm-blooded. So typically, more warm-blooded animals tend to be more active, which means that they need more space. So when I say a couple of rooms in your house, I'm not kidding, and that's probably an underestimate for this thing, considering a full-grown Charizard is what, like, I don't even know how tall Charizard is. Maybe yay big, at least like 5 feet. Temperature-wise, that actually probably wouldn't be so bad because they can make their own heat with their literal fire. I would think that it might be possible for them to get too hot, but I don't know how their physiology works because they're made up monsters. But, they also don't have any fur or feathers to keep them warm. So, I don't know, extreme temperatures on either end are obviously not very good for pretty much any organism, but that's probably not an issue in most cases. However, because of how active they are, you would probably need to take it out and exercise it. Especially Charizard, or else its wings, like, it's not going to be able to fly in a normal room, So you would need to let it out and hope to God that you could get it to come back to you, because, I sort of compare it to like a bird of prey, because this is something that you also need to do for a bird of prey, in that if you are a falconer, you need to take your bird out every single day for exercise. But unlike a bird of prey, if your bird does not come back, there's not the risk of it burning down a town. If you think people freak out when you lose a python, imagine what will happen when a literal fire-breathing dragon comes and burns down a house. You probably could also never go on vacation or anything, because warm-blooded animals go through way more food than cold-blooded animals do. So for example, if you have a pet snake, especially if it's an adult, you feed it once every week, 2 weeks. So if you needed to go on vacation, not a problem. But if you have a pet, gerbil, or if you left your pet dog or cat for 4 or 5 days without food, you might not have a pet anymore. Next we have hardiness, for which the Charizard line actually gets a score of 3 out of 5. A big piece of feedback that I really wanted from the last episode was, sort of about the possible presence of Pokemon breeders in the world of Pokemon. And I think the general consensus was that they probably do exist, especially for the starter Pokemon, because the professors that hand them out to every random 10-year-old, they need a steady supply of the starters, so they must be getting them from somewhere. Because you could probably get one captive bred, its health probably wouldn't be that big of an issue. The main thing with a Pokemon like this is that you would need to feed it, probably multiple times per day. And, we also discussed that in the last episode, where it's like, Pokemon food is like these little pellets, but like, would that work? Presumably these are, at least carnivorous. Probably, maybe Charmander might be insectivorous, but definitely Charmeleon and Charizard are carnivorous. You would need to feed them lots and lots of meat every single day, which could be really hard because A, you have a job, so you might not be around to feed it multiple times a day, and also it could just try to burn you alive anytime you get near it. Next, for availability, the Charizard line also gets a score of 3 out of 5. Like we said, you could probably get one captive bred, although I would think that not that many breeders would be producing Charmanders, because we've already talked about how hard it is to keep a single Charizard. Could you imagine keeping multiple of them? Plus, like I said, Charizard is the second most popular Pokemon, and so I'm sure its demand would be very, very high. So you get a lot of, high demand, low supply. They're going to be kind of hard to come by. They would probably be sold out almost instantly when sort of a breeder announced that they were having a clutch of Charmander. So you could get one, but it'd probably be quite difficult, and honestly they might even be like regulated, because, similar to how venomous snakes are in the real world, because they are so heckin' dangerous. And for our last category, we have upfront costs, for which the Charizard line gets a score of 1 out of 5. As mentioned, captive bred Charmander would be in incredibly high demand, and also, like I said, in very low supply. basic laws of supply and demand means that that animal, or Pokemon, is going to be ridiculously expensive. Plus, once you get one, you need to retrofit a room, or probably multiple rooms, in your house to be fireproof. Like I also said, I have no idea if this is something that you can even do. Like, you'd probably have to have like a professional company that does something like this come in and do it, which cannot be cheap. Or you just need to have really, really good insurance and be willing to lose everything that you own to a fire. Plus, food is something that you would need to buy a lot of up front, because this Pokemon, like I said, is going to burn through, pun intended, so much food because of how much energy it needs to produce to keep itself alive, particularly that fire. Fire literally is burning calories. And that is why the Charizard line gets an overall score of 1.4 out of 5. Fire-type Pokemon in general would make absolutely abysmal pets, especially large ones like Charizard. It's hard to imagine a worse pet than Charizard, honestly. There are plenty of pets in the real world that are dangerous and can kill you. Pets that are, animals that are kept even somewhat commonly as pets, such as, venomous snakes, and as Tiger King showed us, big cats are way more common than they should be. But I cannot think of any animal that is commonly or even uncommonly kept as a pet that can destroy your entire house, possibly even an entire town. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Pallet_you to keep up on all things Pokemon science, as well as, if you feel so inclined, we do have a Patreon, the link to which is in the description if you feel like our content is worthy of supporting in that way. Massive, massive shout out to our supporters on Patreon. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching, and as always, there's a time and place for everything.